the short answer to is this plague a sign of the end times is, yeah, of course. But
that's scary.
Yeah, of course it is.
Why are you frightening me?
Well, because that's not my goal, is to frighten you.
But it's the effect. We're back here at Closing the Social Distance. And today, we're talking about end-timesiness. It's one of my favorite...
End-timesiness.
End-timesiness, of or having the qualities of the end times.
So, this is one of those things that's been coming up in the plague. Every once in a while, you'll see an article that claims that this bishop or this cardinal has declared that this is the plague predicted at the end times.
And in the Office of Readings, we're reading Revelation, and we're having all sorts of scrolls opened, seals bursting, and there's lots of exciting things. So why not have this be end timesy too?
Yeah. And I think, so the short answer to is this plague a sign of the end times is, yeah, of course. But
that's scary.
Yeah, of course it is.
Why are you frightening me?
Well, because that's not my goal, is to frighten you.
But it's the effect.
I think oftentimes we get a little mixed up about what all these end times predictions of plagues and wars and rumors of wars are all about.
I sense a Clementine clarification coming.
Well, of course. I mean, in 1000, or 999, when it was about to flip over to 1000, everyone assumed...
The Y1K crisis.
The Y1K crisis. Everyone assumed that this was it. That this meant the return of Christ, and, all of the signs of the news were... Or whatever.
I was going to say the news, yes, in the Dark Ages, but go ahead.
Dark Ages. But,
I was just a poke. I just wanted to see if I could get a reaction, and I succeeded. But go ahead. Dominicans don't really care for calling them the Dark Ages, or even the Middle Ages, for that matter, which is a very kind of chauvinistic modern conceit. But go ahead.
And people were very well read then, and enough of them.
Yes.
They didn't have Instagram.
Which speaks better for them.
But there was a real worry then, and there were preachers that were trying to drum up all of this same kind of energy. And then during the plague, which is 14th century, there were also those same kind of fears that this is God's judgment, this is the end times, this is it. And so, if by the end times we mean that this plague is going to be, that tomorrow Christ is going to touch down and the dead are going to rise and be judged, tomorrow, this week, the next week, then I think it's likely we'll be disappointed because we've been in this place before and it hasn't happened that way. But I don't think that's really the goal of the end times passages, is to let us know, to have us searching for clues as to when things are all over.
The Lord explicitly warns us against the presumption of knowing the time or the place or the hour of the second coming, of the end of the world, this world. And yet he gives all these warnings. He can be very end-timesy himself. And so what you're suggesting is that points to something other than trying to predict, yes, this is it, we're now in the middle of it. Rather, it points to something more profound and theological about the reality in which we live.
Yeah, well, Christ declared, right, that he is king of the world and that his kingdom doesn't have an end. And he wishes his apostle peace. And so there are all of these features of the kingdom of God that we expect to be reigning. And yet if we look out at the world, we don't see the victory. We don't see the signs of his victory hanging around. And so I think the point of the end times passages, the warnings of plagues and wars and rumors of wars, is to help us, the faithful, to understand why we're still in a world that is passing away, and to be able to see the divine hand in these awful occurrences, to be able to see the presence of God even as the accidents of this world are decaying. God is not invested in a particular prince or a particular political system or a particular mode of living. He is promising us an eternity with him. And so I think we're to see in these signs of what's around us tumbling down, with plagues and threats, the fact that God remains present to us and that what we belong to is not this stuff.
God is in control in the end. And it doesn't mean that he's actively afflicting us with these things, but so much as he shows his power by his permissive will, of allowing both nature in its woundedness and mankind in its flawed and broken reality to continue to suffer from the effects of sin, in order to be able to show forth that victory that we celebrate in the resurrection all the more clearly, because he's able to draw good from the worst evils, and he's able to order even the most disordered thing to himself, and he's able to take even the sign of death and defeat, of Satan's supposed triumph, and turn it into the sign that we have in our churches, in our studios, all over, the sign of the cross, of his victory, a sign of death and ignominy that becomes a sign of glory and of salvation. And so, we will always have trials and tribulations, and they will be continually a reminder that this world is passing away, and we are to keep our eyes on Christ and to love the things of Christ that are present here, that are in this world but not of it, and to look forward to that fulfillment in the day to come of all the good things that we've enjoyed here, but without the dint of loss and without that sense of mortality that afflicts us always here on earth.
As Christians, we're a part of the victorious kingdom, but yet we're forced to live still in the defeated world. And this is what the defeated world looks like.
Yeah. So we are exiles, pilgrims on the journey, citizens in absentia, and we are tending towards that heavenly city. And yet here we are, so reread John, the Gospel of John, the farewell discourses, and Christ's high priestly prayer to the Father, where he consecrates his friends, his disciples, by extension us, in truth, and notes that they do not belong to the world and the spirit of the world. And in this sense, he means like the devil, but that they belong to him. And that as long as we remain faithful to him, even if the worst happens, even if our worst fears happen, God is still faithful to his promises. Have you ever read Monsignor Ronald Knox's Enthusiasm?
No.
You should read it, and it's a great book. If you find yourself wanting to read about 600 pages of theological history, as we all do from time to time, read Knox's Enthusiasm. It's a great book. It's all about the ways in which different ages of the faith have always seen, I like to call them the swivel-eyed loons, the crazies who think out of an excess of enthusiasm, out of an excess of passion that they can read and tell the time, that it's going to be the end, or who confuse passion and zeal for faithfulness and for holiness. And it happens in different ways and in different extremes. There's some great funny stories, like this group during the Black Death that went around and they protested the wearing of clothing because it was a sign of original sin. And so they didn't wear clothes, and they would go into town shouting, "We are the naked truth." Now that's a cult. I'm impressed by them.
They must have not been in Cincinnati in the winter.
Obviously not, but it's lovely out. So, if you see crowds of naked people wandering around shouting, "We are the naked truth," you'll know it's time to break out the Knox again and find out how an excess of enthusiasm has caused us to lose sight of the foundational truths. So.
You might find a link to buy the book below if Father Henry sends it to me.
There's like a 50-50 chance I'll remember. But if it's not there, write angry letters to Fr. Clement at stgertrude.org and continue to protest the lack of effective links. In any event, I hope that you all are not being too end-timesy yourselves, at least no more than necessary. Know that we are praying for you this time and all times here at the altars at St. Gertrude's. We miss you, and we hope that you're still praying for us. Look forward to being with you as soon as we can be. And in the meantime, stay tuned to Closing the Social Distance, and we'll see you soon.